Hi everyone, my name is Alexandra Hudson. I am the author of The Soul of Civility, Timeless Principles to Heal Society and Ourselves. And I am passionate about building an era of multi-dimensional human flourishing in our world. I'm passionate about building a civic renaissance in our world, a world where we are flourishing across difference, where our differences aren't things that are bringing out the worst in us and are causing us to want to destroy each other, but are bringing out the best in us. That is the promise of democracy, a relevant idea as we celebrate the 250th anniversary, the semi-quincentennial of America. What is American democracy? What is the next 250 years going to look like? So I had a wonderful week last week with local city managers at the ICMA conference in Philadelphia. City managers are CEOs of cities, essentially. Sometimes often there's a mayor and a council, and then often there is a city manager as well. Not all cities' governance structures vary from place to place. There are a lot of reasons for that, but it was such a privilege to meet so many local leaders who are dealing with this on the front lines, this crisis of a division, but dehumanization as well, and are doing something about it and are excited to do something about it. And so it just gives me so much hope. I loved being in Philadelphia with them. And then a friend of mine hosted an event for me with the Root Quarterly. The Root Quarterly is a kind of the New Yorker of Philadelphia. And there we had a panel discussion about the substrate of American democracy. What are the preconditions of human flourishing and life together with others? So a joy to be with ICMA in Philadelphia, and then this event with the Root Quarterly, an ethical society there, essentially launching the Civic Renaissance Tour in Philadelphia there. This season of my work where I'm partnering with local leaders to take the ideas of the soul of civility off the page and into practice, which is a great privilege. I wanted to share an idea with you I've been thinking of recently. It is called, and I'm titling this piece, How to Be Imperfect. And I like this idea because the premise is that we are imperfect. We are going to make mistakes. As Alexander Pope said, to err is to be human, to forgive is divine. And we've lost sight of that. We've lost sight of this idea that to be human means we are going to make mistakes. And we instead live in this era of sort of a strange perfectionism where we expect people to never have made a mistake at any time or any place, and to be fully formed, never change their mind, never saying or doing something to hurt one another. And in fact, that's just not what it means to be human. As Blaise Pascal said, to be human, the human condition is defined by the greatness and wretchedness of man, both and. We are the pinnacle of the created world, capable of altruism and ingenuity, but also capable of unconscionable horror and monstrosity as well. So there are two ways to be imperfect. Here's the core argument. The first is to deny our imperfection and to go on being imperfect anyways. And that sets us up for constant disappointment in ourselves and in others, where we are constantly going to be annoyed at ourselves when we make mistakes, when we fall short over and over and over again, because that's just an unrealistic standard. It's contrary to our nature and what it means to be human. And we're constantly going to be disappointed with others. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to make promises that they can't keep. They're going to disappoint us. And if we don't want to live a life of constant disappointment and resentment, disappointment in ourselves and resentment towards others, the key is to not deny our imperfection, but to embrace it. And this is the second way to be imperfect. It's to embrace our imperfection and to see our mistakes as things that make us uniquely human, and opportunities to grow and to repair. And that sets us up for less disillusionment in human life. I recently got back from Japan, and I shared this idea that I felt really inspired by, this Japanese aesthetic ideal called wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection. And an expression of that is kintsugi, this ancient Japanese art, 500-year-old art form of taking broken pottery and piecing it back together and gilding the cracks with gold. And this idea that actually, when we have a rift with someone, we fall short, someone else falls short, that relationship has been strained or broken. as broken pottery, or anything can break from time to time. And in this 21st century era of post-consumerism, post-capitalism, the easy thing to do is discard it and buy something else. We have a rupture in a relationship, discard the relationship and on to the next, right? We have apps for that. We can find new friends pretty easily, And I love that kintsugi causes us to pause, to repair, and that actually healing a relationship, as healing wounded and broken pottery, on the other side, it can make us better and more beautiful, because it tells a story. It tells a story of brokenness and repair. And that's the promise of this work, the soul of civility, this work of helping us flourish across difference. This work of the Civic Renaissance Tour is to help us become more fluent in understanding the human condition. And part of that means recognizing our greatness and wretchedness, our fallenness, and becoming fluent in the language of grace and forgiveness. We are going to make mistakes. We are going to hurt others. I'm going to disappoint you. I disappoint my kids. My kids disappoint me. And the reaction, the proper reaction, is not to discard ourselves and say, I am just categorically wrong and terrible and evil and beyond repair, beyond help. And just to our kids as well, and to people around us, not to discard them, to paint them with a broad brush, a monolithic narrative that they are bad, they're going to disappoint us, they're just not reliable people. That's the easy thing to do. But it's to say, that is a person with amazing capability, with dignity, worth, seeing them in the fullness of who they are, and they made a mistake in that moment. This gets to an idea from the book, unbundle people. See the part of them, the mistake, the thing they've said to hurt us, the thing they've done to hurt us, the view they hold that we disagree with or that causes us pain. Seeing that in light of the whole of who they are, the irreducible dignity and worth of who they are, the context of the relationship, that they're not defined. Let's not define ourselves or each other by one thing that we've said or done. That we are more than our decisions, we're more than our views. We are infinitely beautiful and complex. We come to our views about the world for many different reasons. So how to be imperfect? Let's not deny our imperfection. Let's embrace it and not justify it, right? When we hurt someone, we ought not double down and just say, that's just the way I am. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to instead own that and to become fluent, regain a fluency and grace and forgiveness, and say, you know what? I apologize. I fell short in that moment. I lost my temper. I was actually hungry. I was really hungry. And I was hangry, and that came out in that way. I'm overtired. I was actually, now that I think of it, I was mad about that thing that someone said to me earlier today, or that disappointment, and that metastasized, and that came out here, and I'm sorry for that. Please forgive me. That was more about me than you. And that has the opportunity to strengthen our relationships. Owning our imperfection, becoming fluent in the language of grace and forgiveness. That's the kind of parent I want to be. That's the kind of leader and person I want to be. I'm going to make mistakes, and not to deny that I ever make a mistake, but to be self-aware enough and humble enough to own that and come forward with it, and hopefully move forward with strength and grace and beauty. That's the promise of kintsugi. That's the promise of wabi-sabi. So how to be imperfect? Let's not deny our imperfections. Let's recognize that that's part of what it means to be human, and let's build a world where we are more accepting of the fullness of what it means to be human. Greatness, wretchedness, all. Thank you so much for being here, part of the Civic Renaissance community. I'd love to hear what you think. Tell me about a time where you fell short, where you lost your temper, and maybe an opportunity for you to repair, for you to say, you know what, that was more about something else than about you, and I'm sorry. This is an opportunity, an invitation for you to repair a relationship that could actually become stronger on the other side because of this. Let's be imperfect together. Thanks so much.